Shalom. Today I want to declare a truth to the whole world. But please do your research, okay? Study. We must recognize the deception and manipulation of the devil. Since ancient times, God's covenant people were commanded to hold a holy convocation the Sabbath day according to his ordinance. The very first being who ever kept the Sabbath was the Almighty Himself in Genesis 2, verse 1 to 2. After completing the creation, God rested on the seventh day. Ancient manuscripts stated that Yahweh Shabbat, meaning the first Sabbath keeper, was God the Almighty. For centuries, until around the 3 AD, 3 centuries AD, in God's people kept the Sabbath, the first church, and two 3 centuries AD. But a drastic change happened when Emperor Constantine enforced a shift from the Sabbath to Sunday, the first day of the week. This was done for political purposes, aligning worship with the majority of his empire, who were followers of Mithras, the sun god worshippers. Who were the followers of Mithras, the sun god, celebrating and honoring the sun on Sunday. This truth is clear, yet through hidden motives, the devil has manipulated human minds to divert them from God's command. It must be understood that the enforcement of Sunday worship was established with an iron fist through bloodshed by killing those who resisted and remained faithful to the 7 day Sabbath. They were silenced, meaning to be killed. The shift from Sabbath worship to Sunday was literally built on violence. Violence. Today, worldwide Christianity largely worship on Sunday. Sunday, the day of the sun god. But from the beginning, the Almighty, the God of Adam, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, appointed the Sabbath as the day for his people to worship. All the days of worship were associated with the false gods, including the sun god, whose identity we all know. Behind the scenes, there has always been a spiritual war between the Almighty and Satan, the war of worship day. Who fell, yet without realizing, God's covenant people have unintentionally granted the devil victory, specifically in the matter of the worship day. Although God should already have won, since his people now fill the earth. Ironically, more of his people worship on the devil's day, the Sunday, than on God's appointed day, which is Sabbath. Scriptures, both Old and New Testament, contain thousands of verses commanding and affirming the 7 day Sabbath. Some Christians defend Sunday by claiming they honor the day of Christ's resurrection. But historically and biblically, this is inaccurate. The Messiah died on the 14th of Nisan at the sunset, because in the biblical calendar, a new day begins after the sun set. Okay? He was buried and remained in the tomb 3 days and 3 nights, rising at the same time of day that he was buried or entered into the tomb. This does not point to the Sunday morning. Okay? So he must have risen before entering the first day, which means he was risen in the Sabbath day. Okay? Because the great Sabbath mentioned in Scripture is not Saturday. It refers to the Passover high Sabbath or Pesach, which is celebrated for 7 days, which move from year to year. Only 1 year, sometimes it falls and began on Tuesday. The next year, maybe on Friday, and so on. Thus, using Sunday as the resurrection day is not a valid biblical argument. In the Old Testament, in the New Testament, when it says he rose at the beginning of the first day, the biblical first day begin after sunset. Okay? Therefore, the Messiah rose at the end of the Sabbath day. Just as the new day was beginning, meaning he still rose on the Sabbath, not Sunday. Most of the New Testament was originally written in Hebrew, not Greek. The apostles, including Paul, spoke Hebrew. Paul even traveled with interpreters. Had we read the Hebrew originals in original text, it would clearly say that the Messiah rose at the age of the first day, okay, which begins at the sunset. This thus he rose at the exact time of day his body was placed in the tomb. This is the most logical interpretation of the biblical timeline. So, brothers and sisters, study this for yourself. Do not believe it blindly, but I am convinced this is an absolute truth. Research will confirm that God sanctified the Sabbath as his holy day for worship because on that day he rested after creation, opening a special heavenly portal, a divine atmosphere for his people to access and commune with him. Had we all Christians hold our holy convocation on Sabbath, then this whole world would be filled with heavenly divine atmospheric. Okay? And you make God to gain the greatest glory and victory. So God desired that on his Sabbath, his people gather worldwide. Now, this time, this is the age. God desired that on his Sabbath, his people gather worldwide in holy convocation. Be blessed. So